how's it going? My name is Alex Mead, and for my organizational analysis, I decided to do Kersey Athletics. So, Kersey Athletics is a small athletic organization that starts with a youth league and then goes all the way up to high school sanctioned athletics as well as club high school athletics. We are a small town about 8 miles east of Greeley, so Kersey Athletics just seemed like a great place to do my analysis on. Very interesting on how a small town organization works compared to a larger youth organization such as the ones we'll see in Greeley. So, goals of Kersey Athletics. The mission statement, the goal of Kersey Athletics is to foster total growth of young person participating in an effort to develop sportsmanship, teamwork, positive self-concept, good self-control, strong work ethic, and a sense of fairness. Staff. There are 42 staff members. This includes coaches as well as office staff, and it's divided between 15 teams. And again, these teams range from as small as 8-year-old youth league to CHASA-sanctioned high school athletics. So, my SWOT analysis. Sorry, the SWOT's up there hiding, but strengths. So, the first strength that we have going for us in Kersey Athletics is this incorporation of youth through high school. So a lot of these kids are growing up together, so they have the opportunity to play youth sports together and then work their way up as 18-year-olds playing the same sport. And with that being said, a lot of the staff we employ are the parents of these kids. So that helps. A lot of these parents are very intrinsically motivated to come out and coach, be a staff member of Kersey Athletics, just because their children are going through it. So our athletes, coaches, and other staff, they're already pretty loyal to Kersey Athletics. And this comes from Greeley as well. We do pull several coaches, staff members, and quite a few athletes from Greeley. And when I interviewed the athletic director that I'll talk about in a little bit, he felt that this was a huge strength of Kersey Athletics. And then another strength for us is we don't have this competition like what we'd see in Greeley over practice fields. Instead, Kersey Athletics they don't have to compete against Greeley leagues or Fort Morgan leagues. All the youth leagues, the middle school leagues, and the high school leagues, as well as the high school club leagues, all get their own practice field, their own practice times, and if something happens where they get rained out, it's very easy to make this up. So, sorry, wrong way. So the weaknesses. Some of these strengths that I'll talk about, they're also our weakness. Starting off, we're a relatively small organization, and the largest set of our employees are our coaches. And it's roughly half of the employees are coaches, and out of those, about 50% of them are volunteers. So they're what the Kersey Athletics call dollar coaches. These dollar coaches are 99.99% volunteer. They're paid $1 for their efforts. So again, we have to rely on this intrinsic motivation. And because of this, a lot of the coaches coach multiple sports. And then our location is also a weakness. So if we get a age group of kids who aren't as involved as athletics or in athletics as other kids are, then we might see a really large drop in the numbers that we would get in previous years for the athletics. So, this has the potential to hurt Kersey, but, again, this isolation, I still think it's more of a strength than a weakness. If we're not able to pull from Greeley as well, then that could hurt our numbers too. So, opportunities. So in 2016, Kersey Athletics started its first youth football league. So Kersey Athletics is still pretty young. And it saw tremendous success. Huge success. And in 2017, they started another one, kept it going. 2018 was really the capstone to it, if that's the right terminology. It's here to stay. Kersey Athletics is not going, or the youth football league in Kersey Athletics is not going anywhere. The parents loved it. Parent involvement was good. 2019, there's already a waiting list. So because of this, they're starting and adding a softball and a basketball league, youth softball and basketball league for the 2020 and 2019 season. So we're hoping, the athletic director is hoping that the turnout that we saw for football, we're going to see the same thing, and it's going to allow Kersey Athletics to expand. Right now, Weld County is going through an oil boom. Kersey is located pretty much right in the middle of Weld County. The Platte Valley School District gets a lot of their money from the oil industry, and as this boom continues, Kersey Athletics is hoping to dip their hand in this pool a little bit. If Kersey Athletics is able to get the money that they're hoping for from the oil industry, then we might be able to expand. Kersey Athletics could have multiple teams for each sport, add more youth leagues, add more club teams that we don't already have, such as like a swim league, a dive team, club wrestling, something like that. So the oil boom right now is a huge potential opportunity for us. Threats. The older the kids get, the less Kersey Athletics makes them pay. And the thinking behind this is then Kersey Athletics, in a sense, has to compete with CHSAA. So with CHSAA, the kids do not have to pay very much to be a part of a team. If Kersey Athletics started charging, $150 to be on a league, on a club football team, for example, for high school, then we would likely lose a lot of them to just the high school leagues, to CHSAA leagues. So instead, we charge the youth leagues because there's not CHSAA 8-year-old football, flag football. Instead, then as it goes up, then we're going to drop those prices down. Another threat that I thought that Kersey Athletics had after talking with their AD is an overall lack of a marketing plan. So as they move through, they're not thinking about long-term, 10 years down the road. What Kersey Athletics could be like in 10 years, as well as who they're going to market to in the future. Right now, their marketing plan is very, very basic. It's short-term. This is who we're going to market to. This is how we're going to do it. But I don't see it going anywhere past 3 years. So unless Kersey Athletics figures this out, I feel that this is a real threat to them. So this chart here, it shows basically the opportunities, both sides of internal and external environments. So on this side, we see confront and exploit. That's going to be really external. On the other side, avoid and search. This is going to be internal. So if we have something that is an opportunity and in one of our strengths, we should exploit this. If it's a strength but has the potential to be a threat, confront it. If it's a threat and a weakness for us, they need to avoid it. And then an opportunity, but it's something that Kersey Athletics is weak in, they need to search for a position until that weakness goes to a strength. So culture of the overall organization. So group organizational commitment. This says that commitment reflects the relative strength of an individual group member's feeling of identification with and attachment to group goals or tasks. So with that in mind, the three I got to interview, Darcy Giesick, who is the softball coach, Troy Hoffman, who is the football coach, and Travis Steiner, who is the director of athletics for Kersey Athletics, as well as the high school athletic director for the CHSAA sanctioned sports. So when I talked to all of them, I showed them a couple of theories, and they felt that group organizational commitment was very prevalent here because all of these group members had this feeling of identification and attachment to Kersey Athletics, whether they're a high school coach or a youth coach. Troy Hoffman, for example, he is the youth football coach, the high school football coach, and helps out with the club football leagues. So I felt group organizational commitment was very fitting here. So looking at Kersey Athletics from a group development standpoint, right here we have 5 steps, starting with forming, the group physically forming, to adjourning. And I'll explain this in a minute. So forming, people join groups for a number of reasons, including attraction to a group of goals. For Kersey Athletics, this is going to be a huge part of that mission statement that we were talking about earlier. Athletes, parents, staff, coaches, they're all attracted to Kersey Athletics because of the goals that are put out there. Storming. Individual styles start to conflict. So when I interviewed Travis Steiner, he never felt like that we went through a storming phase, which is nice. Basically, this is when people have ideas on how to run it and start butting heads. He never saw this, but he said that doesn't mean that it wasn't there. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and maybe the fact that it's a very small organization has to do with there not really being a storming phase. Norming. So the group establishes rules and standards. Maybe Kersey Athletics had a very brief storming stage and immediately went into the norming stage. Performing. Group starts to accomplish its tasks. This is where I feel Kersey Athletics is right now. I don't think they have been affected by any outside factors that the adjourning stage would say. The adjourning stage is organizations get confronted or get comfortable and do not respond to new things in their environment. So something in this environment that I envision would be like this oil boom taking off. A new youth athletic program starts up and competes with Kersey. Well, in this phase, Kersey is comfortable and doesn't really know how to respond with new forces in the environment. So as of right now, I feel like they're in the performing stage. Tasks are getting done. Everybody's moving in that general direction that the mission statement is saying. Managerial style. So working in teams throughout large organizations, teams are being employed to work on tasks rather than giving them the work to a single person. This is very, very important for Kersey Athletics. Rather than dumping all the work on one person, they dump it on a team. And dumping isn't even the right word, but tasks are given to teams of members to accomplish rather than an individual person. Each team oversees their sports category. So for example, right now, Troy Hoffman and the football staff are in charge of everything below CHASA sanctioned sports. So for the youth leagues and as well as the club team, the club leagues, they're in charge of the football side of it, which is, it's really interesting with that. They're not undermined by, people who are above them. They're in charge. They're supposed to handle the task. This helps fire this intrinsic motivation. They are in charge of many aspects of the CHASA Football League, but the high school athletic director, Travis Steiner, does have to be involved in that side because that's part of his job description. And what we're hoping for Kersey Athletics is as more youth programs enter in, they will mirror what football's trying to do. So for example, if Darcy Giza gets that youth softball program next year that she's hoping for, she will be in charge of the youth league. Her and her team will handle all of the issues, not be undermined by higher ups in management. So for management style, we have three categories: project, problem solving, and self-manage. Each of them have their own level of autonomy. Project team is low to moderate, problem solving is moderate, and self-management teams are pretty high. I feel that Kersey Athletics is here. The emphasis is placed on managing the overall internal work processes of the team. So again, they're in charge of everything internally, and you could argue externally too, that comes along with the youth football league. And again, hopefully when we get the softball and basketball leagues, the softball and basketball coaches will be in charge of this as well. So trait theory. So trait theory explains the different traits that we hope to look for in leadership. And out of these 7, when I showed Travis Steiner it, he liked it, but as trait theory explains, as critics to trait theory describe, these are not the limiting factors. So when I showed him this, he said, yes, when I go to hire a coach, I'm looking for a leader, and I would love to see all of these leaders, but they're not limiting to. These leaders do not just have to, have leadership capabilities. Those can be developed, drive, self-confidence, cognitive ability. They are almost limiters in a way. Again, he would love to see all this, but he said there are so many more traits that make up a leader, especially in a coaching position. Out of the coaches I've interviewed and were told about, they all seem to have this referent power. This is based on their personal magnetism and charisma. They all seem to be appointed leaders though. So this means that Travis Steiner hired them. They were from outside forces and put them in the position. They didn't have that opportunity to move up the ranks like what we would like to see in many managerial positions. Higher up in management, it seemed like it was a combination of appointed leaders and emergent leaders. This emergent leader is that category that we'd like to see. They have the magnetism and charisma that people look for, but they also have the ability to move up and earn their peers' respect through that. Travis Steiner was very, very proud of this. Coaches have never been fired in Kersey Athletics for not performing and for losing games, essentially. He said they've had to let coaches go because they don't fit with what Kersey Athletics is looking for, or they try and take Kersey Athletic teams in different directions. But he felt that overall he does a pretty good job of hiring his coaches. So, I think this is the last piece. Nope. So, structural analysis. So, looking at social structure, I'm just going to briefly touch on these two, the rational system perspective and the open system perspective. I'm not going to talk about the natural system perspective because I don't feel it applies here, but the rational system perspective focuses on formal structures of an organization and sees a group of people, or the organization as a group of people who work together to pursue their specific goals. Open system perspective argues that one cannot look at individual organizations in isolation. In that view, organizations are intertwined in their environment to the extent of the organization. So I would say that Kersey Athletics constitutes a combination of rational system and open market system. Travis Steiner felt that they were more rational system. It's a bunch of people working towards those common goals that are outlined in the mission statement. And as a whole, Kersey Athletics sees itself as an organization moving through their environment, whether it's youth sports, non-affiliated CHESA, or CHASA athletics. The goals of keeping the kids active through sports at all ages is the same. I felt that they were more in this open system. My personal view of this is because Kersey is relatively isolated, but they are still intermingling with Greeley athletics. So it's not this individual system that we think of when we think of a small town athletic program. And they're also influenced by the oil industry right now and potentially in the future. So there's not as many outside forces as we would see. And that's it. Thank you so much. It was a great 5 weeks. I learned a lot. And yeah, hope you liked it.